We have a great fight coming up at welterweight in our main event. It's a Maverick, Michael Chiesa, taking on the Haitian Sensation, Neil Magny. A couple guys that were coming into the UFC off of The Ultimate Fighter. Season 15 for Chiesa, season 16 for Neil Magny. And both these guys, Matt, have had a ton of success in their young UFC careers. If you have a look at Michael Chiesa, I mean, he won that season of The Ultimate Fighter with a win over Al Iaquinta. That's a pretty good one. You look at the record, though. Francisco Trinaldo, Canada's Mitch Clark, a finish win over Beneil Dariush, Condit, Sanchez, and Dos Anjos. Those three in his last three fights. And for Neil Magny, it was a mixed bag at the start. But if you have a look at some of the wins, Kiichi Kunimoto, Alex Garcia, the forever wrestler. And lately, Johnny Hendricks, former champ, Condit, former interim champ, and obviously topping it all off with Robbie Lawler to get the win there. So for me, this fight is very much the Pete Weber of MMA fight, because this is a question of, who do you think you are? I am! And then after that, he says, damn it right. And a lot of people don't focus on that, but I think that's an underrated quote, damn it right. A lot of people say that. But if you compare these three fight win streaks, they're kind of low-key pretty good. I mean, Neil Magny, Li Jingliang, Rocco Martin, and Robbie Lawler. For Michael Chiesa, Carlos Condit, where you submit him. Diego Sanchez, it is what it is. I mean, he beat Michel Pereira.
He beat the brakes off Diego Sanchez.
And then the win over RDA. Pretty special stuff from these two guys, and a very interesting fight, getting close to the top of this division.
So it is interesting because you look at kind of the first two wins in both guys' win streaks. You have Li Jingliang, who's a good fighter, but I wouldn't really say he's elite. And then Anthony Rocco Martin, another good fighter, but again, I would keep them out of the elite category. Robbie Lawler, who is a great fighter, former champion. We all love Robbie Lawler for what he has done for the sport. I gotta be honest, the Robbie Lawler who fought Neil Magny was not the same guy.
If you put Matt and I, taped us together, we might have been able to walk into that cage. We might have had the same success, maybe.
Probably not.
Probably.
Robbie Lawler, he's got the big power, he's got the cardio, and everything that we know Robbie Lawler for. Neil Magny went out there and was really just able to keep Robbie Lawler guessing throughout the fight, and I think that's going to be a really big component going into this main event against Michael Chiesa, because you look at both guys, Neil Magny has by far the more 5-round experience out of these two. Now, Chiesa did have that one main event against Kevin Lee. We all remember that for Mario Yamasaki. Maybe he was asleep, maybe he wasn't. But that was...
talk about his mom, whatever you do. Right here, it's just like Beetlejuice.
Exactly. Michael Chiesa in that fight, yes, he sort of kind of maybe got submitted, but that was his first kind of introduction to the 5-round club. Whereas Neil Magny, he fought Santiago Ponzinibbio for 5 rounds. He fought Kelvin Gastelum for 5 hard rounds to a split decision. He's been in those deeper waters for longer than Michael Chiesa has, and I think that's an important point to bring up when you're breaking down this fight. For Chiesa, though, you look at his 3 last wins, he's kind of one of those Kelvin Gastelum, Chael Sonnen legend-killing tours, if you will. You look at the win over Diego Sanchez, Carlos Condit, and RDA. Those are 3 much more established, well-known names in the welterweight division. And the RDA fight was very interesting. Who gives RDA issues? Dominant wrestlers. Strikers don't give him any problem because he can out-grapple most strikers. And then guys who are just good at wrestling, he can defend their takedowns, keep the fight on the feet, and beat them up. Michael Chiesa went out there and completely out-grappled RDA. And it wasn't in the way that we had seen before in the Kamaru Usman way or in the Colby Covington way where we're so much bigger than him, we can overpower him. Michael Chiesa beat him because of sound footwork and good grappling. It wasn't the things that really stand out when you're looking at a fight and looking at how impressive a guy looked in the performance. But to do what he was able to do against RDA just shows you what level of grappling Michael Chiesa is at. And you don't need us to tell you how good of a grappler Michael Chiesa is. This is a guy with submission wins over Jim Miller. He submitted Beneil Dariush, one of the better grapplers in the UFC. Chiesa on the mat is a problem for anybody. And yes, people are going to bring up, he got submitted by Anthony Pettis or Kevin Lee submitted him. Kevin Lee, again, controversy in that one. And in the Anthony Pettis fight, he got rocked and then he got submitted. It's not like he just got straight up submitted by Anthony Pettis. And I do think those are really big distinctions we have to make. And this fight, last point from me, this fight comes down to wrestling defense. And I think this comes down for both guys. If Neil Magny can take down Michael Chiesa, and I know you're probably thinking, well, why would he do that? Neil Magny has really good top position and he's got really good ground and pound as well. Now, I'm not recommending Neil Magny goes for takedowns in this fight because on the ground is definitely where Chiesa is going to have the most success. But if Magny, if they're having 50-50 striking exchanges, and if he just wants to change it up for the sake of the fight, he could go for some offensive takedowns. And it wouldn't be the end of the world for Chiesa if that happens, but it's just a great position for Magny. On the flip side, if Chiesa is able to take down Magny and get on top of him, that's a position we've seen Neil Magny really struggle with throughout his UFC career. RDA kicked his leg, got on top. and just through really heavy top pressure, was able to then get into mount and then, of course, get the arm triangle choke. We've seen it before where Neil Magny from top position is a problem. Neil Magny off of his back, though, a much more manageable guy, especially if you're Chiesa looking for submissions.
I mean, perfect example in a striker's paradise type of fight. Hector Lombard. Hector Lombard on top. Neil Magny on top of Hector Lombard. Now, the big difference is the power bar of Hector Lombard. And with Chiesa's, it's a little bit more reserved, I guess I should say. Or he understands how to manage it a lot better than good old Hector Lombard, BKFC's own. But in a fight like this, it is really interesting. And I think it bears the fact that we have a look at the percentages. Michael Chiesa's takedown accuracy, 51%. That's really good, especially for a grappler. I mean, guys with 50% plus takedown accuracy with that many fights, we're talking like the Omari Akhmedovs of the world, where that's a great stat to have. 68% takedown defense for Magny, 44%, and 58% for defense, 44, of course, for the accuracy. Those are pretty good percentages.
For both guys.
Those are really good percentages for both those guys. Chiesa averages about 1.3 more takedowns per 15 minutes than Magny does. 3.84 for Chiesa, 2.55 for Magny. So both guys very active with their ground games. Neil Magny, especially in that fight against Robbie Lawler, it was like, well, Robbie Lawler is a good wrestler. We're not really going to have to worry about this. Neil Magny...
Did not matter.
Neil Magny looked like top dog in that fight. Like, he fought the fight of his life in that Robbie Lawler fight. And yes, I get it. Robbie Lawler's on a huge, steep decline. But still, Neil Magny, you can't take it away from him. He did look really good in that fight. Originally paired up to fight Jeff Neal in that one.
That would not have been a good fight for Neil Magny. I'm just going to say that right now. Michael Chiesa, if you ever play 2K, there's these things called glitched cards where they make like Shaquille O'Neal really good at shooting three-pointers. Michael Chiesa straight up just had a glitched fight. When he fought Jorge Masvidal, that fight makes no sense. And you go back and you just look at how it ended. Jorge Masvidal wins by Darce choke. And you're like, well, A, Darce choke, that's a pretty cool submission to hit. Michael Chiesa drops Jorge Masvidal in that fight, and then Jorge Masvidal submits Michael Chiesa by Darce choke. Nothing that I just said makes any sense at all when we're talking about MMA, because Chiesa does not have great power by any means. He's more of a volume guy. His stand-up has gotten quite a bit better, but definitely known for his ground game. And the fact that a primary boxer was able to get him in a Darce choke, just a very bizarro fight for Chiesa.
One of the weird things about this fight, too, with Michael Chiesa, and I talk about this all the time, I always compare him to Michael Johnson. You see Michael Chiesa in the corner, so many different fighters, same thing with Michael Johnson with the guys at Sanford MMA, is the fact that he corners a lot of people. I honestly did not know what to put for his home gym on the graphic that you're going to see floating around next to us, because he's been a Sick-Jitsu type of guy. He's trained in the Pacific Northwest. A couple of sites have him as strictly the UFC PI. But throughout the pandemic, he's been doing a lot of commentary. He's been doing a lot of booth work. I know, we've known about this fight for a while. A lot of these fights coming in around short notice, what have you. I don't know what kind of work Michael Chiesa has been doing over the last calendar year, because it's been almost a year between his fight against Dos Anjos and his fight against Magny. Neil Magny in 2020 fought Li Jingliang back early in the year. In June, he fought Rocco Martin, and in August, he fought Robbie Lawler. And he's been very active, training at Elevation in Colorado. So just a couple of things to watch out for as we preview this fight. In terms of the predictions so far, over on Tapology, 544 total predictions out there by the fans. 56% going with Magny. 81% predicting a decision win from him. For Chiesa, 44% picking him, 54% saying decision, and then about 40% saying he's going to win by submission. If we have a look at my paper notes and the odds, Neil Magny opened a minus 150 favorite. He's now a minus 136 over on best fight odds. Michael Chiesa open plus 130. He's now at a plus 111. So the money's coming in on Chiesa. The votes are in on Neil Magny. This is a tricky fight to try and pick.
It really is, and I only see it going one of two ways. Either Michael Chiesa wins by submission or Neil Magny wins by decision. I don't think Michael Chiesa can keep up with the pace of Neil Magny for 5 rounds. And that's nothing against Michael Chiesa. I just don't really know any UFC fighter who can keep up with the consistent pace of Neil Magny. Now, yes, of course, like Usman could out-wrestle him and make him tired. But for the most part, Neil Magny has as good of cardio as you can find in the UFC. And that's, throw in Max Holloway, throw in anyone like that. Like, that's the type of cardio Neil Magny has. And he's very good at weaponizing his pace. It's a term that I heard for the first time when Chael Sonnen talked about it, and then Chael Sonnen talks about how GSP was the first person he'd ever seen do it. Now, GSP and Magny use it in very different ways, but you can kind of see what he's getting at, and just really by the term. Neil Magny is like the ocean. He just kind of chips away at you, and he'll erode away at you over and over and over again. And
you got it. You got it right.
What?
Oh, if anybody remembers from one of the last prediction videos back in December, Matt had erosion way off and didn't get it, but good job.
So for Chiesa, if he can avoid just the grinding style of Magny and keep the fight on the feet, and this is the weird thing. If I'm Michael Chiesa, I defend every single takedown for the first 3 rounds. I only let Neil Magny take me down in the later rounds of the fight when I can no longer get the takedown myself. And I think that's an important point to make, because if you're Chiesa going for takedowns on Magny, you're just going to get tired yourself. And if you can keep the fight on the feet, make Neil Magny work. Don't just get taken down because you know that your strength is in the jiu-jitsu. If you can force Neil Magny to work as well, you might be able to bring down some of the output that he has himself in those later rounds. And Neil Magny, I'll liken him a little bit to a Jack Hermanson. Now, I understand his main event didn't really go his way, but he has a similar style of striking where he's just doing a lot no matter what. And for Chiesa, that might give him trouble. He's in the same boat himself. It's not like, we're not going to see a one-punch knockout in this fight, one of the few things I can guarantee. But if Neil Magny is able to get Chiesa up against the cage, he's going to be able to land in combination with very high levels of volume. Whereas Chiesa, if he gets Magny up against the cage, I don't see him, A, either having the wrestling to get Magny down from that position, or B, I don't see him being able to land to the body and to the head and really start putting combinations together to hurt Magny later on in the fight. I like Neil Magny. I like him by decision. But I do see there being about a 2, maybe 3-round window where Chiesa can get a submission.
And for me, the Neil Magny fights are his last 2 fights that really proved a lot of questions or doubts that I had. And if you look at it, the fight against Rocco Martin, what's Rocco Martin good at? Well, at 55, he was a good wrestler. At 70, he's been a really good wrestler. He goes up against Neil Magny. He tries to push a pace, and he's not able to do it. He's not really able to take Neil Magny down, not really able to keep him down, not really able to wear on him either. And in a 3-round fight in a small cage, Neil Magny looked amazing. In the fight against Robbie Lawler, Neil Magny's offensive wrestling looked great. Michael Chiesa, again, I think he's a great wrestler. If he submits Neil Magny, feather in his cap, a big win for him, especially in a main event like this. That's a great showcase ahead of a Conor McGregor fight. It's in a Conor McGregor window of a week, and listen, you can disagree with me there, but the guy's the biggest star in the sport. So that's a huge win for either of these guys. But again, I like Neil Magny. The one thing that he's never really been able to do all that well, and it's not to a Stefan Struve extent, is his distance management isn't there with a Struve. You see some people push a pace, push them up against the cage. Or really, if they're a real power striker, they're able to kind of push against them. But, like erosion in the tide, he's able to kind of push back. And again, it's the ebbs and flows of Neil Magny understands his gas tank so very well that he's able to withstand a lot of power and pressure early. Then he's able to apply it later on in a fight. And for a lot of those reasons, I also have Neil Magny.
So I do agree. The only thing I will say is Magny on the offensive is good at using his range. He won't just rush in when he does think he has an opponent hurt. Now, again, it's not like Neil Magny has a lot of instances where he cracks the guy with a right hand, they get stumbled, and he's just rushing in for the flurry kill. But he is a very disciplined fighter. And we see a lot of fighters, it's a very simple word, and you probably think, well, every fighter's disciplined. There's levels to this game, and Neil Magny is on the higher level of, okay, I'm a very cerebral fighter. And again, everything positive I can say about Neil Magny, there's a bit of a runoff to Michael Chiesa. These two are very similar, not only inside the cage, but outside as well. I do like Neil Magny, but again, can't stress this enough. There's a window where Chiesa can strangle Neil Magny unconscious. I just think after the second round, the overall cardio of Magny is going to be too much of an advantage.
Matt, we're both going with the Haitian Sensation Neil Magny to pick up a win. We have an insane week planned ahead. So maybe you're watching this ahead of time. Maybe you're watching it, before the card between Holloway and Cater. That question mark kicks is at 10 a.m. Eastern here on YouTube. I've been putting those out there early. This card on Wednesday morning on the East Coast of North America. We're going to have question mark kicks on the Tuesday night. And for Saturday's card, UFC 257, question mark kicks will be at a normal time before that pay-per-view event. Make sure you're paying for it. Watch out for Uncle Dana. They're not paying me to say that, but he's out there. He's lurking. He's looking in the underground whisper networks of the place, trying to figure out who's
on the
bad.
bloody elbow for him.
But really looking forward to this fight. Again, we both have Magny to get the win. Enjoy fight week. Let us know down below who you're picking in maybe even this fight or the rest of the fight card. It's going to be a lot of fun. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt, as we always say.
Let's get into it.